Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. And in this video, we're going to be deploying a simple Java application on ECS. And here we have our project architecture, and we're going to be deploying this application on AWS cloud. And this AWS cloud, and we have our VPC. We're going to be using the default VPC. We are going to set up an ECS cluster. Okay, first off, we are going to push our images of our application to our Elastic Container Registry, and then we'll create an ECS cluster with using Fargate. Then we connect that to a load balancer to be accessible through the public internet. Okay, so here I have the steps we are going to be following for this project demo. Okay, so deploying a multiple container on ECS. So we are going to be using services like ECS, using services like ECR. We are going to be using Fargate. We'll be using the AWS application load balancer and the AWS security group for this project. So these are the core services you are going to be using for this project, and the steps you are going to be taking for this project. So first off, we're going to clone our repository. That's the source code repository from GitHub. And after that, we're going to build this application into an artifact. That's the Java application. We're going to build it into an artifact. Then after that, we'll containerize this application. Then after we containerize this application and build it into a Docker image, we then create our ECR, that's our Elastic Container Registry, where we are going to push these Java images, these container images to. Then we are going to create, for the ECS, we are going to create an ECS cluster using Fargate as the instances. Then we'll create a tags definition. I'm going to walk you through how to create a tags definition for this. Then we are also going to create services, okay? Create services, security groups, and load balancers for these projects. So this is just the overview of what we are going to, the different steps we are going to take to accomplish this demo. So let's go to my repo, my source code repository. So I have my source code repository here. This is my GitHub, and I will just get the code. Here's the source code, and I will assume you have VS Code already installed. So I'll go to VS Code. I will open a new environment. I will just take this off. So I will clone my repository by saying git clone. Okay, so git is present on my host. So I'll clear my screen. To clone, I'll say git clone. Then I'll paste the URL. Okay. So once I hit that, is going to clone the repository. So if I do ls, you can see I have my simple Jenkins project here. Okay. So if I open this tab, you will also see the simple Jenkins project here. Okay, so this. So we have our source code available now on our host. So you can see this our source code, our Java source code, and you can also see under the resource, you can see the other resources here for our Java source code. So this is basically a Java application, a simple Java application, and it comes along with a database. Okay, if I should open the application properties, you are going to see the, you can see I have you can see Postgres here. So it's using it's a Java application using Postgres and PostgreSQL database. So let's go on. So the next step is to build this application into an artifact. Okay, we have to build this application into an artifact. We have to build the Java application into an artifact. So first of all, let's check if Java is available on our host. So to check if Java is available on our host, let's say Java option version. To check for the version of Java, you can see Java is present on our host. Another thing to check is to check if Maven is present also. So I'll say Maven option version to check for the version of Maven on this host. Okay, npm option version. Okay. So Maven is also present on our host. So if you are following with this tutorial, you have to check also if Java and Maven is present on your host, because these are the tools we use for building the application into an artifact. So let's build our Java application. So we have our pom.xml already existing here on this directory. You can see we have our pom.xml here. So we have to cd to the location where this pom.xml file is located. So cd to the directory where it is located, simple Jenkins project. Okay. If I do ls, you can see I have my pom.xml directory here. I'm going to go ahead and remove my target directory because that's not needed for now, and uls target is no longer there. So to build the Java application, I'll use Maven to build it, and to build we use the Maven command npm clean package. npm clean package. Okay, so this command is going to run an automated build and test on this Java application, and it's going to build it into an artifact. So you can see our application is building. Our source code will be built in just a while. Okay, compilation, testing, and successful. So you can see the build is successful. So it might take up to just, for me, it took up to just 30 seconds to build. So it might take a while for you, but 30 seconds should be okay. So I'll clear my screen, and if I do ls, you see that I have a target directory existing now. Okay, so if you see here also, you can see I have the targets directory now present on my host. And if you look closely, you see the artifacts. Okay, you see the artifacts here, projects dash 0.0.1 snapshot.jar. So this is my jar file, okay, which is my artifact. So this is the actual file that we are deploying, the file we are deploying on ECS. So the next thing the next thing we are going to do is to containerize this simple Java application. Okay, so we are going to containerize this Java application. So to do that, already on this repo, I have a Docker file. I've written out a Docker file. Okay, so you can go ahead and use my Docker file, or you can modify it to your own taste. So You can see here I have from, that's here showing the base image. I'm going to be using Eclipse territory for this as my base image, and I'll set my working directory to apps. Then also this copy actually copies from the present working directory which we are here, and it's going to copy the targets from the targets directory. It's going to copy everything. You can see the hysterics here. It's going to copy everything with the extension .jar and copy it into the containers directory or the containers and location we specified here, and rename it into package.jar. Okay, we're going to be exposing the application to port 8080, and for CMD, we are going to be running this command at the runtime. Okay, so we have our Docker file existing already. So the next thing to do is to do Docker. So first off, let's check if Docker is on this host. Okay, so Docker is present. So to build this application into a Docker image, we do Docker build option T. So we are going to tag it. So we are going to give it a name. I'll say simple Java app. Okay, simple Java app, and I will specify the location of my Docker file, which is still on my present working directory. So I'll just use the dot to do that. So once I hit enter, my application, my Docker file will be built. Okay, it might take a while. It might take up to 1 minute to build. All right, so my application has been built successfully. Okay, and then to check if it has been built, to confirm, I will say Docker images. Okay, Docker images, and I can decide to grab. Okay, I can decide to filter out my Docker file that I just did, which is simple. Just a simple Java app. So I hit enter, and you can see this is my image. Okay, so this is it has filtered out from the list of images I have present on this post, and you can see this is the image I just built, the simple Java app image. So clear my screen. Then the next thing I'll do here is to create an ECR repository for our application. Okay, so we are going to go ahead. We are going to go to our AWS management console. So I'll assume you already have an account with AWS. If you don't have, you just click on and create button and the sign up, and you sign up with AWS. Okay, so I'm currently logged into my AWS account, and you can see this is my AWS dashboard. Okay, this is my account dashboard. All right. So the thing we are doing here is we are going to create a repository for our application on AWS, which we are going to be using the AWS own managed container registry, which is ECR. So to navigate to ECR, we'll just say click on the search tab here, and you type ECR. So you're going to see ECR. I'm just going to click on it. All right. So this is my ECR dashboard, and you can see I have some images existing already on this dashboard. I can take these off. I don't really need them, these images any longer. I'll just take them off. All right, so I've done my cleanup. So I've cleaned up my ECR repository. So you can't find any image here on my private repository. So you can either create a private repository or you can create a public repository. All right, so let's go ahead. To create a repository, we click on create repository. Okay, so it's going to take you to this wizard where you're going to actually be guided step by step how you're going to create this repository. Okay, so here you can see you can select the visibility settings. Okay, you can either make it a private repository where it will only be accessed by your account, the AWS account, whereas if it's public, it's made available for general public to access. Okay, so I'm going to make this a public. You can decide to make it private, but let me just leave it a private. So I'm going to give it a name. So at this point, you're going to give your repository name. Okay, so I'm going to give it I would say simple Java app. Okay, it's a simple Java app. Then I'll scroll down and just click on create. Okay, click on create. All right, so it has been created successfully. Okay, so I have my application now, simple Java app, which is actually the UI. Okay, which is actually the UI, the Java UI. So I will click on it. You just click on the repository that I've created. Then you click on view push command. So at this point, you're going to view the necessary command you can use to actually push this image to your repository. That's your image, the image you built on your local host to your repository. Okay, so for Mac and Linux users, is you can click on this tab to get the necessary commands to use. Then for Windows users, you can do this also. Okay, you click on the Windows tab to get this. So, all right, so the first thing we'll do here is to log into our ECR. Since it's a private repository, we'll be prompted to log into the registries for us to be able to push images to it. Okay, so to do that, we'll just copy this and we'll go to our VS Code. That's our code editor. I prefer using VS Code. Go to our code editor and we paste this. Okay, and I will assume that you have AWS CLI already configured. Okay, I assume that you have your AWS CLI already installed and already configured. If you have not done that, you go to the browser and get the link to install AWS CLI and follow the necessary step to configure your user on your CLI. Okay, so for me, I've already done that. I've already installed AWS CLI. I say AWS CLI. You can see I have AWS CLI. You see I have AWS CLI already installed on my Mac. So I'll clear this, and I've already configured my credentials, okay, on this also. So for you, if you have not done that, you just check the link below. You should see the link to do that, to install AWS CLI on the host. So let's continue. So you paste the command So this command will help with this command, you'll be able to log in into Amazon ECR. So you can see here, you can see AWS ECR get login password, okay, which have already been configured on my AWS and CLI. To get a password and username, then it will then log in into my ECR. So this is my repository, okay? So I'll click on this and it will resolve. It will take a while. Then it's successfully logged in. Okay, so you can see login successful. Okay, so if that is done, let's go back to our repository, our AWS and management console, our ECR. So we'll come to this page once more. Please go to repository. Click on view push commands. Okay, you come back to this page. The next thing to do is to build this application. We have already built the application already. Okay, so we'll jump this step. So we'll go to the next step. The next step is to tag this image. Okay, so we need to rename this image to fit with the repository name, the one we just created on this ECR. Okay, for us to be able to push this image to ECR. So we just copy this command, we'll go back to our code editor. So I'll paste this here, I'll hit enter, and it has been tagged. Okay, so I've renamed my image. So the next thing to do here is to push this image to my repository, my ECR. So you can see this is the command to do that. So I'm going to copy that. That's number 4. And I'll go back to my code editor and I will paste it here and hit enter to start pushing my images to my repository. All right, so you can see it will take up to 1 minute to push this image to your ECR. Okay, it might take a while in your own case, but just wait for it, be patient for it to push to ECR. So you can see my application. Here I have my applications property. So we are going to take note of this because this is going to come handy with the integration and communication of our application with the database. Okay, so we also need, for this application to run, we also need a PostgreSQL database. Okay, so we are going to use a PostgreSQL image for this application. Okay, so we're going to be using a PostgreSQL image for this application. When we come to that, I'm going to show you how to do that. So this is the connection strings. Okay, for our UI, our Java UI to connect with the database, we need to use this connection strings. So I have already declared some environment variables here. Okay, on this application. So we are going to be using that when we reach the point to deploy this on ECS. So wait for our image to load. Let's wait for it to push to AWS ECR. All right. So our image have successfully been pushed to Amazon ECR. So you can see the hash here. Okay. So let's go to our AWS management console. Let's go to ECR. Okay. So we are at this point. Let's close this and then let's refresh. So you can see the image with the tag latest, which is actually what I just pushed now. I've just been pushed to the repository. So you can see what we tagged our image as simple Java app, okay, with the tag latest. So you can see All right, so this is cool. So the next step is now to deploy this application ECS. Okay, so we're going to deploy this application now on ECS. So the first step is to create a cluster on ECS. Okay, so we'll go to ECS, and search for ECS. ECS. Click on ECS. Click on ECS. Then we'll wait for it to load. So you see we don't have any cluster running presently on ECS. And the next thing to do is to create our own cluster. So click on create cluster. Okay. So we're going to give our cluster a name. So this is going to be our Java cluster, or we can say our tests. Let's just name it test cluster. Cluster. Okay, I'm going to give it test cluster. Scroll down. So for the infrastructure, so you can select any of these instances you want. That's any of the VM that you want to run in your cluster. So you can select either Fargate, that's serverless, or Amazon EC2 instance, which is virtual machines. Okay, so I'll just go with Fargate. Okay, to make my work much more easier. Fargate is managed container service, AWS container service for serverless. Okay, AWS serverless container service solution. Okay, so it's fully managed by AWS. So I'm going to click on that and click create. So it's creating, you can see, it's going to take a while to create. After successfully been created, you can see the message here. So the next thing to do now is to create a tax definition. Okay, so at this point you are going to specify what it's just like a blueprint of how this deployment is going to look like. Okay, so we create a new task definition. So you can either do it by either create new task definition or create new task definition with JSON. Okay, so that I'll just go with the first option, which enables me to create task definition just by clicking. Okay, so I'm going to give my task definition a name, right? So I'm going to say this test task definition. I'll just use TD, task definition. For the infrastructure requirement, I'll still go with Fargate, and I'll leave this as default. So for task role, I'll click on ECS execution role. Scroll down, then here we have the container one. Okay, so this container one, this is the point where you specify the images of the containers you want to run on this cluster. Okay, so the first image I'm going to run on this cluster is the database. Okay, so I talked about this application being an application that has a UI, a Java UI, and a Postgres database. Okay, so this point I'm going to create my Postgres database. I'm going to specify the image here now. So I'm going to say Postgres. Then the image URL is Postgres. Okay, so it's going to be pulled from Docker Hub, Postgres, the tag latest. If I don't specify, it's going to select it on default latest. All right, so I'll leave this and I'll come to this point. Okay, so this point is where you are going to specify the ports of the container. Okay, so already Postgres have a standard port, which is port 5432. Okay, 5432. So I'll specify the ports and scroll down. After specifying the ports, I'll scroll down for the protocol. You can leave it at that. And leave it at HTTP. You scroll down. Then at this point of environment variable, very essential. So we are going to be specifying some environment variables. We're going to be adding some environment variables for the database. Okay, for the database. So the environment variable we are going to be putting here is the environment variable we actually need to log into this database. Okay, so we are going to go back to our source code. So if you see here on our source code, we have our database here. Okay, that's our data sources. So you can see username and password. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, Postgres password. That's the environment variable for declaring password for Postgres standard. So I'm going to say Postgres. Take this off. It's going to be Postgres password. There's a Postgres password. Then value, I'll leave it as password. Value, I'll leave it as password. Then another thing, still going to add another environment variable for logging in, which is going to be my Postgres user. My Postgres user. Okay. And if you check the source code, my application properties for my source code, you see for the Postgres username, you can see I already have it hard coded here. Okay, so I'll just copy that for the username and I'll come back to my application and I'll paste that as the value of the username. Then I'll create another environment variable for my database. Okay, the Postgres database. So it's going to be Postgres database. Okay, so for Postgres database, I'm just going to give it a value. I'll say Java DB. Okay, you can give it any value of your choice. For me, I'll just stick with Java DB. So you scroll down. So that's done. These three are the essential environment variable I need to authenticate into my database and create a database. Okay, that's my Postgres. So if that is done, I'll scroll down. And leave all of these at default. I'll scroll down. Then I'll add another container. So we have added our database container, right? So the next thing to do now is to add our UI, okay, our Java UI. So I'll say my Java UI. Then for the image URL, I'll go back to ECR. Sorry, I'll go back to ECR and copy the repository URI. based on that. So I'll wait for that. I'll open it on another tab. I'll come to my image and I'll copy the URI, the image URI, okay? And I'll go back to my ECS on the page I was working before. That's the tags definition. Wow. I'll have to start all over again. Okay, I have to start all over again. I think I have to refresh. So let's start over with our task definition. I'll give my task definition name, which is test. I say test task definition. I'll leave the infrastructure requirement as Fargate. I'll scroll down for the task role, execution role. I'll choose ECS task execution role. For the first container is our Postgres. And the image, I'll say Postgres. So I'm going to put Postgres image latest on default from our Docker Hub. So the image port is port 5432. Then I'll scroll down, I'll add environment variable. The first environment variable is Postgres password, which I said I'll go with password. I'll add another environment variable. I'm going to say this my Postgres user. I'm going to stick with the user Postgres. Then I'm going to add another environment variable, which will be my Postgres database. My Postgres database, for the value, I'm going to say Java DB. So that's where we left off. So we'll just scroll. I'll add a new container. So this is going to be my Java UI. Then I'm going to paste the Postgres. I'm going to paste my image, the image I just pushed to the ECR, the one I just want to copy the URI. I'll paste the image URI here. Okay. Then I'll scroll down. Then you click on add port mapping. Okay, don't forget that. For essential content, before you click on admin on port mapping, you have to enable this essential containers. Click on that. Then add port mapping. So our container is going to be running on port 80. And for the protocol, I'll choose HTTP. Scroll down. Then I'm going to add environment variable for this application for the connection. Okay, for my application to connect with my database, I need to add the environment variable for the connection string. So you can see here I have my DB hosts. Okay, so I'll copy this DB host. That's my database host. So for a typical application in Docker, if you are deploying your application in Docker, when this application was deployed on Docker, DB host, also DB host. We used the container name, that's the database container name, to connect with the container, either the database container name or the IP, the host IP address, okay, that we use for connecting. But since this is not the typical Docker environment and we don't have the IP address already existing, we just stick with local hosts since they are on the same host, on the same machine. So we just stick with local host. So the DB host will be local host. Then we go here, go to our requirements again, and you can see another environment variable, DB ports and Postgres DB. So we'll go to DB ports, go and update that. So we add another environment variable. So say DB ports, then we put our Postgres DB port here, which is port 45432. Then finally we add the last one, which is Postgres DB. We'll add the value for Postgres DB, which is how we specified it to be Java DB. Okay, so let's cross-check, let's review what we have done. Okay, so change this is supposed to be Postgres DB. It should correspond with the other. Postgres DB. So this is fine, is okay. Postgres DB. If that is done, our environment variables are set now. Okay, our host, which is localhost, our port, which is our port to our database, then our database itself. So if that is done, you scroll down, leave this. Since this is a test, we are not going to be attaching any storage for now. So you click on create. Click on create. Wait for it. And you can see that our tags definition have been created successfully. Okay, so you can see we have our Java UI and we have our Postgres database. Okay, so if that is done, let's go ahead. Next thing here, the next step to take is now to create our service. Okay, it's now to create our service for this definition. So you scroll down, you go to cluster, click on cluster, let's create a service of cluster now. Click on cluster, click on our test cluster, scroll down, then you can either create a tags or you create a service. So for me, I'll just create a tags. Okay, so you click on run a new tags. So you click on run a new tags, you can see already our existing cluster has been selected. So you can either go with launch type or you go with capacity provider strategy. Okay, so these are the two strategies we can use in provisioning our service. So we can scroll down, leave this as default. So for the application type, I would stick with service. I'll scroll down, then Here I'm going to specify our task definition. Okay, so you click here to specify the task definition you want, and it's going to give it a revision. Okay, so I'm going to give our service a name. So I'm going to say this is my Java app service. Let's use SVC to indicate service. So for replication, for replicas, I will stick with, I'll just specify 2 replicas since it's test. Scroll down. From networking, click on networking, you specify the number of, you can select a VPC. Okay, if you have created a VPC, you can select a VPC, but me, I'll stick with default VPC. Then I'll select, for the subnet, I'll go with EUS2A and EUS2B. Take this off. For a security group, we need to create a security group for this. Okay, so I'll click on create new security group. I want to give my security group a name. I'm going to say this is my Java app security group. I'll say my Java app UI. This is the user's interface security group. Then I'm going to give it a description. I'll say you should allow traffic from anywhere. Okay, since it's for test purpose, I just leave it as that anyway. Allow traffic from anywhere. So for the type, I'm going to go with that's for my inbound role. For my inbound role, I'm going to go with custom TCP. Then I'm going to specify the port range, which is port 80 for my UI. Port 80 for my UI. The source I'm going to select anywhere. Okay, so it's going to be allowing, it's going to be exposing port 8080 to the public internet. Okay, that's my UI. So that will be that. For load balancer, from our architecture, you see that we have a load balancer. Architecture, you can see I have a load balancer existing here. Since I have 2 Fargate in my cluster, Fargate instance in my cluster, I will need a load balancer to load balance the traffic between them. So to do that, I'll just click on select load balancer. I'll select load balancer. I will go with application load balancer. And then for the container, so what the load balancer is to do is to expose, I want to expose my UI, that's my Java UI, to the public internet. So I'm going to go with the Java UI instead of the Postgres. Since the Postgres is my database, it needs to be something that is private, that can be accessible through the public internet. Okay, so I'll not like to expose that to the load balancer. So I'll just expose that within my Java UI. Then I'm going to be creating a new load balancer since I don't have one existing before. I'll give it a name. I'll say my Java UI application load balancer. That's ALB. Okay. Then for health check, I'll leave that as default. For listeners, my load balancer is going to be listening at port 80. Okay. load balancer is going to be listening at port 80. Then for my target group, so I'm going to be creating a target group. So I'm going to give my target group a name. I'm going to say this is my Java UI target group. Then protocols, I'll leave it. Protocols, I'll leave it like that. Okay, so I'll still have to make some edits to my load balancer because my target group I need to well, let's create a load balancer. I'm not using this UI because I can't find some I can't find some properties here like to create my port for my target group. So we'll go straight to EC2, go to our VM, go to EC2. Let's create a load balancer. Let's go and create a load balancer and attach that to this UI. So I'm going to open this on a new tab. I'm going to open it on a new tab. I'll go to load balancer. Load balancer, you scroll down and select load balancer, or you can just select load balancer from this point. So let's create a load balancer and attach it to our cluster. That's our service. Attach it to our service cluster. So click on this, click on load balancer. So the dashboard for load balancer is up. So click on create load balancer. All right, so here we're going to specify the load balancer we want. So for this ECS cluster, we are going to be using application load balancer, which is ALB. So we're going to be using our ALB. So you scroll down, you give a load balancer again. So I'll just go with, you said Java UI ALB. Java UI ALB. So it's going to be an internet-facing load balancer. For the VPC, I'm going for default VPC, the one I specified, okay? And I'm using, to be mapping load balancer across EUS2A and EUS2B. Okay, that's our availability zones. Then for the security group, I'll take this out. I'm going to create a new security group for this load balancer. Okay, so I'll click on this and open this on the new tab. So let's create a security group for our load balancer. To create a security group, you click on, and this is going to take you to the point of click on security group to take you to the point to create a security group. Then we give our security group name. So we'll say this will be our Java, or this should be our Java, yes, a Java UI application load balancer security group. Okay, so that's how it's going to be. I'll say for the description, I'll say allow HTTP from anywhere. For the VPC, I'm going to be using defaults, going with default VPC. Then the inbound rule, I'm going to be adding the inbound rule. Protocol is going to be to allow on the public internet transport. I'm going to be using it should allow on the public internet HTTP from everywhere. Okay, I'm going to be allowing HTTP from anywhere. Then we create our security group. Create our security group. So after that, is to go back to our load balancer. So now select, click on this to refresh. And you click here in the drop down and you select the balancer, Java UI load balancer. Right? So you click on that. So if that is done, you scroll down so we have configured the security group. So now let's configure the listener. So we are going to leave the listener to listen at port 80. And for the target group, we are going to create a new target group. Okay. So click on this also. It's going to open another tab with here to specify a target group. So we are here. So this is going to give us a basic configuration in configuring our target group. So instead, we are not going to be using instances, rather we're going to be using IPs, okay, IP addresses. So the target group name, we're going to give it a name. So it's going to be our Java UI target group. Okay, then for the port, it's going to be we are going to be forwarding it to port 8080, which is our container port, and it's going to be using HTTP, right? Then this is going to be our VPC. Our default VPC, we'll leave it at that. We'll click health check, we'll click on next. It's going to tell us to select, which will specify a port, that will specify a IPv4 address from our VPC subnet. Okay, so I'm going to give it, let's say, I'm going to give it 34. And for the port, it's going to be port 80. So just click on include as pending, and you can see it is now showing pending. So click on security group. Click on that's create target group, and you can see the target group has been created. Okay, so it's unused, our target group has been created successfully. So we'll go back to our application load balancer, and we now will refresh, and we attach the target group we just created, Java UI target group, right? So you click on it, and it will now be attached. So we'll leave the rest as defaults and go ahead and create our load balancer. So our load balancer is getting created, and it has been created successfully. So you can see it's provisioning, and you can see everything is okay. So we have created our load balancer. So now we're going to go back to our service, the service we were creating before for our ECS. Okay, the service we are creating before our ECS starts. So instead of configuring this, we just go back to this point and we select, if we should select select load balancer, application load balancer. For this, to select Java UI. So instead of highlighting and create a new load balancer, since we have already created our load balancer in the other tab, I will just suggest we just click on use an existing load balancer. And if you click on that, it's going to give you this drop down. So you click on this, you are going to see the load balancer we just created, the internet facing load balancer. Okay, so click on it and you will see we leave everything as default. Listener. So for listener, we are going to select our existing listener. Okay, so okay, so we select our listener. We scroll down, then our target group. Okay, click on select existing target group, and you can see it's automatically selected the target group we created. So leave everything now and click on create. Leave auto scaling, you don't need that now. It is not included in our architecture. So we are going to wait for a few minutes for our service to get created. So just wait for it, refresh. You should see and see that the replicas are getting created now. And you can see everything is in progress. So I'm going to pause the video, and in the next 2 minutes, I expect this service to be up. So our service have been created successfully. That took almost 2 minutes to get through. So you can see here, you can see that it's now active. We have 2 tabs running, and then if you click on tabs, you can see that I have my tabs, the desired running, and you can see everything is okay. So if I click on this, the first tab, you see that I have my simple Java application. That's my Java UI. Okay. And if I bring this down into, you can see the overview. Okay. So you can see I have a public IP address and I have a private IP address also. Okay. So I can select a public IP address and I'll go to my open a new tab. So if I open a new tab, and I paste that directly to port 8080. You can see hello from Docker. Okay, so our application is reachable, okay, through the public internet. But this is not what we want. Since we attached it to a load balancer, we want to access it through the load balancer instead. Okay, so we come here. Since we are having multiple instances, since we are having 2 instances running this application, it is much ideal if we access this application through the load balancer instead of using the IP address. Okay, so we'll come to our load balancer. Come to the page for the load balancer. You refresh. So you see the load balancer is already active. And when you come to this is the DNS name for our load balancer. Okay, so you copy this and let's go to our browser and let's paste it on our browser. So you can see also, so load balancer is up and it's running. Okay, so you can see that our application is reachable also through the load balancer. Okay, so this is just demo, a simple demo on how to run multiple containers ECS. So to make our application much more secured, so we are going to narrow down the security to make it much more tighter. So if I go back to my security group for my tags definition, if I go to tags definition, the security group for my service, if I go to service, I allowed all traffic from the public internet to reach any port. Okay, that's HTTP payload. I'm going to narrow down the security. I'm going to narrow it down. I'm going to narrow it down to just ports. Ports 80, port 8080. Okay, to make my security much more tighter. So I'll go to security groups, and if I list the security groups I have here, I want to edit my Java application UI security group. Okay, so I would love to edit that to make it more secured, because on default it's not following best practices. So follow best practice. I'm going to edit this and make it the source to be for my load balancer. Okay, so I'm going to edit this rule to allow port 80, just to allow port 8080 from my load balancer. So I'm going to say from this, I'll cancel this. So I'm going to say custom TCP is custom, then I'm going to search. We click on the search, so you can see my security group for my load balancer. So I'll just click on this. I'll just take this off. Take this off and click on this. That's the ALB. Okay, ALB security group, a Java UI ALB security group. So I want to allow traffic from just my ALB security group. So let's do that again. This was activity source custom, and this should be coming from my ALB security group. So this is okay now. Okay, so it's going to open port 8080 from any traffic coming from just my application load balancer. So if any traffic is coming from any other source, okay, outside my load balancer is not going to allow that. So I'll save this rule. Save this rule, and if I should go back and use my IP address, you can see if I come back to my service and copy the IP address for my UI and test it on the browser, you notice I can no longer access that using the IP address. Okay, so if I say ports 8080 and I hit enter, So you can see it's not resolving. So you can see that the security group have blocked any other source, okay? Any other path is taken to reach that application outside the load balancer have been blocked, okay? So you can see the load balancer is still reachable, okay? Whereas if I'm to use the normal IP, it's no longer reachable, okay? So this actually making my security much more tighter. So thanks guys for staying till the end of this demo, and I'll see you in the next